Hi everyone, it's Caroline or Miss B Overseas. Thank you so much for joining me again or just joining in general. Today I have some book recommendations for you. One of my favorite Booktube style recommendation videos to watch is the "if you like this, then you may enjoy this." Recently I have seen some people putting a twist on this style of recommendations video where it is, instead of "if you like this, then you may like this," they twist it to be "if you did not enjoy this, you may in fact enjoy this." When I was watching those videos, I was just always in awe that people were able to come up with so many options and choices for this style of video until my most recent video that I posted. I will link it, but I won't talk that much about it because it's just too soon. But I read a book for that video that really reminded me of a book that I had read in the past that I did not enjoy. But the book that I read for this video, I really enjoyed. And the more that I got to thinking about it, I was like, there's actually more than a few books that I could link through this. I want to add the caveat that the way that I present the books in these videos may not actually be a reflection on my personal opinions about the books. There may be books in here where I say "if you didn't like this," and it doesn't mean that I didn't particularly dislike that book. I'm more just going off of general reviews that I've heard or just reasons that someone may not enjoy a certain book and why they may enjoy a book with similar concept. I'm actually going to start off with the recommendation that inspired this video. If you did not enjoy Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand, I think that you will really love Other Words for Smoke by Sarah Maria Griffin. Both of these have so many concepts in common. There's this haunted, witchy, spooky island setting. Both books have this sort of boogeyman, dark figure that preys upon young girls. I remember being so hyped up for Sawkill Girls just because the concept sounded like something I was so interested in, and the whole time I was just so disappointed. The whole book fell flat for me. I was hoping that the tone of the writing was going to match the sort of spooky etherealness of the plot, but I did not get that. However, you get all of those things in Other Words for Smoke. I was super invested in these characters. The tone of the writing, the author just did so many things to make just the writing and the atmosphere so spooky and reflective of its setting. There are sections that are written in second person, so the audience is like directly referenced, which I think always adds to atmosphere. There are these footnotes sort of from these unknown narrators that are very foreboding, and they're just these kind of simple like interjections or sentences, but they make you feel so on edge. I said this in the video where I read Other Words for Smoke, but there's even like tiny little like insignificant details that these two books have in common, like moths. Moths are both a very important thing and symbol in both books. Both books have a sapphic representation. Cannot recommend Other Words for Smoke enough, especially if you were let down by Sawkill Girls. I think you will get all of the vibes you are looking for in Other Words for Smoke. Next recommendation I have is that if you did not enjoy One of Us is Lying, but you are still looking for a YA mystery thriller that has a core central group of characters that a crime is centered around, I think that you will really enjoy This Is Our Story by Ashley Elston. I will say that both books, like most YA mystery thrillers, have concepts where you need to suspend your disbelief a little bit. In This Is Our Story, there is this group of boys that at the very beginning, one of them gets shot on this hunting expedition that they're all on together, but they are all protecting each other and they are not speaking out about who actually was responsible. Their story is actually viewed from the outside perspective of this girl at this high school where they end up transferring to. Like I said, there's elements that you need to suspend your disbelief. There is a perspective, first-person perspective shift between the main girl character, and then you also get a perspective from the boy who is responsible for shooting his friend, but the catch is that you don't know who that boy is. So the whole time you're reading these chapters from this unknown narrator, and then you switch back and you get the main character's perspective interacting with these characters, and the whole time I remember just trying to piece together like, oh, was that something that the unknown narrator would have said? For me, that's what constitutes a good YA mystery thriller, or any mystery thriller, just something that keeps me guessing and something that I am invested enough in. This next one hurts me a little bit, but I am a big enough person that I can own up and recognize that we don't all like the same things. If you did not love or like Beartown by Frederick Backman like I did, I think that you should pick up and try The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. So at face value, these two books don't really have anything in common. Beartown focuses on this small town hockey team, and The Night Watchman focuses on this time in history where this bill was trying to be introduced by Congress that would emancipate American Indians from their land. However, both stories follow this structure where it is very much a character study about people's reactions to one common event. Know that not everyone loves Backman's writing style like I do. I've heard the critique before that it can be very cliche or very just like the sentences are placed just so. The writing style in here is also very, very brilliant, but it is different, so different from Backman's writing style. It's very cerebral, it's very heady, it's very mind-bending. So I think that if you're looking for something that does a similar analysis on character, but not with the structure or plot line of Backman's Beartown, you should definitely pick up and try out The Night Watchman. Next up, we're going to be talking about some hard-hitting young adult contemporary. If you did not enjoy All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven, then I am going to recommend for you A Heart in a Body in the World by Deb Coletti. There has been a lot of conversations about how mental health is handled in this book, and I am not here to say one way or the other whether it was or was not handled well, but I think that if you are looking for a hard-hitting young adult contemporary that isn't as romance-centric, or where the characters just aren't portrayed by their mental illness and trauma alone, I really, really am going to recommend Heart in a Body in the World. Both books very much start off in the middle of things. In All the Bright Places, these two teenagers meet in this bell tower, and they're both there to attempt suicide, and they end up saving each other from that. In A Heart in the Body in the World, it opens up with this girl basically quitting her last few months of her senior year in order to run across the country. You are kind of getting this non-linear timeline, jumps in time to this main character's past, where you are learning more about this trauma that happened to her and is the kind of motivation and reason that is pushing her to kind of just leave everything behind and run across the country. I think that in Heart in a Body, you will find those contemporary aspects, but you will also find the hard-hitting trauma aspects discussed and handled in, from what I can tell, handled in a really well developed and I don't know, well commented on way. All right, I have another young adult contemporary recommendation. If you did not enjoy Wild Blue Wonder by Carly Sorosiak, I'm going to suggest a fairly backlist young adult contemporary called The Names They Gave Us by Emery Lord. Both of these are books that have a summer camp setting. Both of these books deal with self-discovery and grief, very much so. With this one, there wasn't necessarily anything wrong. There was the way it was pitched. I kind of went into it believing that there was going to be this sort of magical or speculative element to it, and I don't think that that was strong enough to actually warrant it being pitched like this. This one is just solely contemporary. I really didn't get a whole lot from the characters in this one. The main character, I could see the growth and development that the author was trying to portray. However, with this one, there is this cast of characters that I think Emery Lord does an excellent job at writing so separately and so differently and so uniquely in the way that they develop and interact and, I don't know, just support and kind of boost one another, and their development is so well written. It's just such a beautiful story. If you're looking for beautiful character development and characters that are distinct and unique and also still have this summer camp light summery setting, but with the hard-hitting concepts of dealing with grief, I highly recommend The Names They Gave Us. Next is going to be a recommendation where I actually love both of the books that I'm about to mention. However, I have a very strong, well-developed opinion on why you may like one if you didn't like this initial one. So if you did not like Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, I really encourage you to pick up Nyxia by Scott Rankton. Illuminae, as you probably know, is a super hyped young adult deep space high octane thriller sci-fi, and Nyxia is also all of those things, but I feel like it's really underhyped. I know that a lot of people with Illuminae, because Illuminae is definitely one of those books that I think you're either gonna love it or you're not gonna love it at all. A lot of people couldn't really jive or get invested or get into the heavy mixed media elements in which this story of Illuminae is told, and Nyxia has no mixed media. It's just a straightforward novel. With Nyxia, you still get this space station setting, but they're traveling in space just like in Illuminae. In Nyxia, there is this group of teens that is trying to get to this planet, and just like in Illuminae, while these teens are spending their time you know, living and sneaking around on this space station, they find more out about this sort of evil corporation. I know that a lot of people find this author duo, their teenage characters, a bit too cheeky and sarcastic and maybe even like a little bit cringy. Scott Rankton, I really do think, writes the teenage voice so well. I loved the narrator of this one. Emmett is one of my favorite narrators that I've ever gotten to read from. So I would highly recommend, if Illuminae did not work for you, please pick up Nyxia. So with this next recommendation, I'm actually gonna start out with two books, but by the same author. So if you could not get into either Between Shades of Grey or Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, either one of her World War II historical fictions, I think that you should pick up another young adult historical fiction called 13 Doorways, Wolves Behind Them All by Laura Ruby. I really commend Ruta Sepetys with what she did with these two books, because she took lesser known events or lesser written about events in World War II history, and she fictionalized them. It remains well researched from what I can tell. A lot of people who maybe don't love historical fiction won't love these two books. However, I do think that if you didn't enjoy these books for whatever reason, but you're maybe looking to still get into historical fiction, or even if you don't like historical fiction, I really think you should pick up 13 Doorways, Wolves Behind Them All. This is also written from the scope of a time in World War II history that isn't talked about as much, which is the home front. It focuses on this orphan girl living in this orphanage in Chicago during the time of World War II. This book has a bit of a unique element because the life of this girl living in this orphanage is narrated from the perspective of a ghost who died in Chicago, I think, during the time of World War I. So you're getting these elements from these two different wars, and then you're also getting the perspectives of two young girls living during the time of this war, but not necessarily in the action of the war. So if you're looking for more of a little bit of a unique narrative and still that kind of lesser talked about or written about perspective of World War II, I really think that you should just try this one. For the final recommendation of this video, I'm going to be talking about two books or two book series that I seriously love and adore. However, I know that there are mixed reviews and feelings, particularly about this first one. So if you did not enjoy The Knife of Never Letting Go, which is the first one in the Chaos Walking series by Patrick Ness, I think that you should pick up and experience the Arc of the Scythe trilogy, the first book being Scythe by Neal Shusterman. Both of these are young adult near future dystopians. With the Chaos Walking trilogy, it takes place on another planet, whereas in Scythe, it still takes place on this planet. If you are looking for just a meticulously, vibrantly, well thought out paced structure, you're gonna find that in Arc of a Scythe. Neal Shusterman did not leave a single stone unturned with this series, down to the setup and how buildings are built in this near future world. Like, he has thought out everything. I do find that this series is a bit quieter. You're not gonna get these high action speed like horseback chases or battles or things like that you get in this one, just because with this whole concept of this near future setting, death has become obsolete. So they have designated people whose job and responsibility is to keep the population under control by killing people. So it's a bit more quiet, but the tension and the action is there. In Chaos Walking, with the noise where thoughts are no longer private and everyone can hear everyone else's thoughts. The Thunderhead in this one, which is kind of this all-knowing cloud, like it's a play on the cloud and it's all-knowing, is mimicked in this one. You might find a similar all-knowing element, a thoughts no longer private element in Arc of a Scythe. All right, those are all the recommendations that I have for you today. Can you think of any books in your head that kind of match this style of recommendation, where if you didn't enjoy a book that attempted a concept, you might enjoy this other book that did it successfully? Let me know. Can't wait to hear what you think. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you very, very soon. Goodbye.